What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through the double game week 22 and 21 ultimate guide. So I know it's a little bit early to kind of plan for these double game weeks, but I use this video as kind of an introduction and a preparation video for these upcoming double game weeks, as it's never too early to plan, even when there's been this many postponements in the current FPL season. So what I'll be doing in this video is, as I said, introducing you guys to the game week 22 and game week 21 double game weeks, the idea of them, the potential fixtures that might happen, and then finally we'll be going over some chip strategies that I think you guys should be paying attention to for these upcoming doubles. So that's something you guys are interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the first talking point, as I usually do when these double and these blank game weeks come around, I'm going to be giving you guys one account over on Twitter that you guys should be following. And that's going to be Ben Krellin, the GOAT of double and blank game weeks. Now, everything in this video is basically because of Ben Krellin. He goes and analyzes the fixtures, the gaps between game weeks, and gives us an estimation or prediction on when the doubles and blanks will be, and he usually is bang on the money. So there's one account that I would recommend you guys do follow over on Twitter. It's going to be Ben Krellin. Just allows you to get that upper edge on your mini league rivals if they don't follow Ben. And he always is bang on the money, as I said, with his information. So shout out to Ben Krellin. Thanks a lot for all this information. But now going on to the reason that this double game week 22 has actually come about was the news from the FA Cup that they updated that there won't be any third and fourth round playoffs or replays of their fixtures. Basically what this means is that in the third and fourth rounds of the FA Cup, if a team were to draw, there's kind of no winner in that fixture. They do have a usual replay of that fixture, a full 90-minute replay, not kind of extra time and penalties that will happen later on, maybe in a week's time or 2 weeks time. So what the FA came out yesterday and said is that all replays for the third and fourth round are cancelled, and therefore those midweeks when the replays were scheduled to be have now been opened. And basically that's why this game week 22 double has come about, because now that midweek is completely open, because that was being reserved for the third and fourth round playoffs of the FA Cup. Another insight into the report was actually that this was done due to the condensed fixtures that will be happening from now to the end of the season, with all these postponements that have happened due to the outbreaks. So basically in game week 22 there will be a double game week. We don't exactly know the fixtures that will take place there, but all you guys have to know is that you can start planning for the double in game week 22. But obviously, now there are still some unknowns for this upcoming double and this upcoming game week schedule. The first one's going to be the lockdown. Now I know what you're thinking, what does a lockdown kind of affect football? Well, the reason why the lockdown might have an impact on the Prem is that this will result in no fans attending the matches, and therefore, logistically, the Prem can cancel games a lot quicker. So usually if fans are attending, they're given a 2-week window, or at least 2 weeks before the fixture is announced so that traveling fans, home fans, can organize their logistics to getting to the fixture, hotels, that sort of thing. And therefore, if there's no fans attending these fixtures, the Prem can move and cancel games less than 2 weeks ahead. So in terms of FPL, this is obviously going to affect us because the Prem can now kind of cancel games before, move games around, and therefore we don't have enough time to plan for these upcoming games. So that's why the lockdown might have an impact. There's been a lot of scientists that have been predicting that the peak of the current wave that we are in is going to be in that January month. That might be the UK, might not be, depending on the upcoming weeks and how they kind of progress with their cases. But just know that there is a good chance that there might be a lockdown in January. The next unknown is obviously the postponements. Game week 18 saw more than half the games postponed. That could be game week 19, game week 20. We don't exactly know what games are going to kind of be postponed from now till game week 22. And therefore there might be a change in the fixtures between now and then. And therefore the postponements are an unknown that we can't really prepare for. Another thing to note with the postponements is that the Premier League will meet in 2 weeks' time to do a reflection or re-evaluation on what they've decided on to do for game week 19 and game week 20. And that might impact the upcoming game weeks if they choose to halt the season. And the final talking point, probably the biggest one, is that we don't exactly know the fixture schedule for these upcoming doubles. These will hopefully come out in the upcoming game weeks. If there's no lockdown and fans can attend the games, I expect them to kind of confirm these fixtures 2 weeks before, and that should give us adequate time to prepare even our chip strategy. So know what you're kind of thinking, with all these unknowns, don't even know the fixtures, why am I making this video? But in FPL, I always want to give you guys the most modular setup as possible. Being modular in FPL, especially this season, is one of the most important factors that I think your Premier League team should have. And therefore preparing for these doubles and giving ourselves enough time as possible is going to be really essential for these upcoming doubles and blanks. Now we'll update you guys continuously as the news does come about. When the fixtures are released, I'll let you guys know in upcoming videos. I just wanted to create this video as a preparation to give you guys a little bit of an introduction into what should be happening, at least according to Ben Krellin. But now going on to what teams and how many postponed fixtures have actually had this Premier League season. The first one is going to be the 3 fixtures that have been postponed for these respective teams. And that's going to be Burnley, Spurs and Brighton. So Brighton, Spurs and Burnley all have to make 3 fixtures up. And therefore a double in blank game week 22 is really likely, as they have to fit these games somehow in between now and the end of the season. We then go on to the teams with 2 fixtures postponed: Brentford, Leicester United, Watford and Chelsea. All these teams are pretty much likely to double in game week 22 as well, as there are more than one fixture that has to be shifted around. But then we go on to teams with only 1 postponement: Villa, Norwich, Palace, Everton, Southampton, West Ham and finally Arsenal. Now you guys might note that there are some teams here that don't actually have a postponed fixture. Man City and Liverpool are probably going to be the 2 most popular teams that don't have a double game week, and therefore it might not be worth holding on to their fixtures when the rest of these teams have a double game week. So you guys can just pause the screen right now, but I would definitely be highlighting that first 3 teams, Burnley, Spurs and Brighton, because these teams will have the most double game weeks and therefore should theoretically return the most points. So now we've kind of gone over the news and the reason why game week 22 might be a double game week. We've also gone over the teams that might double. I wanted to give you guys some context about game week 21 and game week 22 because I think this is going to be a really important talking point for you guys. So the reason I wanted to show you guys these 2 game weeks is not because of the fixtures. Don't really focus on the fixtures here. Focus on the dates of them. So game week 22 will be happening on the 1st of Jan 2022, New Year's Day there. So you guys are going to be having lots of football to look forward to, hopefully over this festive period. But between game week 21 and game week 22, there's going to be a 2-week break. If memory serves me right, the Premier League introduced this as kind of a winter break to give the Premier League players a little bit of a break, but that's not the case this season. There's going to be a ton of fixtures kind of scheduled for these midweeks, and there's going to be a lot of competitions taking place as well. So in the midweeks between game week 21 and game week 22, there's been scheduled the EFL Cup or the Carabao Cup semi-finals. This is going to be a 2-leg semi-final happening on the first midweek and the second midweek, and on that weekend between game week 21 and game week 22, the next round of the FA Cup is scheduled to take place. So if a team is obviously out of these 2 competitions, they'll be having a nice 2-week window. They might also have some game weeks happening in there. And the reason I wanted to highlight this gap is that there has been a little bit of a rumor that the League Cup might cancel the 2 legs and make it only 1 leg. What that'll do is it'll open up another midweek for game week 21, and therefore some teams might actually double in both game week 21 and game week 22. But that EFL news about moving it from 2 legs to only 1 leg has not been confirmed yet, but I think the Prem is asking them to consider this so that it frees up another midweek to potentially have these postponed fixtures. So now that we have covered the kind of different tournaments that might be taking place, the potential for the 1 legs of the EFL Cup and the FA Cup happening on the weekend, I just want you guys to remember that there will be a 2-week break between game week 21 and game week 22, because when we talk about the wildcard a little bit later on, that's going to be a heavy point that we focus on. Now the big next context point about game week 22 is that AFCON, if it does go ahead, which looks quite likely, I think it's too late now to kind of postpone it or cancel it. So I do think that AFCON will be going ahead in Cameroon in that January kind of window. But AFCON will be taking place in game week 22. So those Liverpool assets, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, will be departing Liverpool to play in AFCON, returning who knows when, depends on how kind of they progress out the competition. They are quite favourites, so I think Egypt, Senegal will go quite far into that competition. So I'm expecting them to be missing for Liverpool for at least 2 game weeks. But what does that kind of open up? Game week 22 is going to be absolutely maverick because everyone's going to take Mo Salah out, bring in other options, and therefore that money is going to be split all around the show. So that's going to be a heavy context point to just remember that game week 22 will be the start of AFCON, and therefore the African players will be missing from their respective Premier League teams if they do choose to travel. So I know that's quite a lot to absorb there, a lot of information, so maybe just replay it. I know that I sometimes talk quite quickly, but I just want to get to as much information as possible, and I don't want to bore you guys too much. So now we've gone over the context, let's go on to the potential fixtures for this double Game Week 21 and double Game Week 22. So once again, thanks to Ben Krellin here, the absolute GOAT of double game weeks. He's produced a potential fixture list for double game week 21 and double game week 22. So if the EFL situation doesn't go ahead, we spoke about that in the previous talking point, them going from 2 legs to only 1 leg, game week 21 will fall away and game week 22 will be the only double game week potentially if those teams don't maybe progress to the semi-finals of the EFL Cup. I also want to stress here, Ben has stressed this quite a lot on his Twitter page, that these are only potential fixtures, and I think he said about 20% probability, and that'll obviously increase as we go along for these future game weeks. But what you guys can do is if Game Week 21 doesn't go ahead, you can simply just look at the double Game Week 22 fixtures, and I think he also posted on his Twitter page a scenario, I think yesterday, where he only covered the Game Week 22 double Game Week because the Game Week 21 was still going ahead because that EFL news hadn't come out yet. But what I would also recommend is just pausing the screen right now. We'll be going through fixtures and teams that I particularly like the look of, but I think it's firstly quite important for you guys to just analyze it on your own, and then we'll go through it after you unpause. So first off, what I want to address is that yes, there's going to be some teams that potentially could have a double game week in Game Week 21 and double Game Week 22. Absolutely sensational there. Double game weeks in 2 adjacent game weeks. Absolutely mental. I don't think it's happened too many times in my FPL playing career, even though it hasn't been that long. But great fixtures on paper there for some teams. And when you kind of dive deep into them, you can see that there's some really good sides that you guys should be focusing on. The first thing that I want to just point out though is that the Liverpool fixtures are Chelsea, Brentford, and the Man City fixtures are going to be Arsenal away and then Chelsea at home. So when you've spoken about these Liverpool assets, you know, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane going off to AFCON, how's that going to affect Liverpool? I mean, if you're considering that Mo Salah has Chelsea away and then goes to AFCON, you might want to get rid of him before Game Week 21. But I guess we can still focus on that a little bit later down the line. You know, we're going to keep Mo Salah for the foreseeable future. And when the fixtures do get tough or he goes to AFCON, then we can always ship him out and use that money elsewhere. I think right off the bat, there's some fixtures that are kind of popping out to me. I particularly like the look of Leicester, Norwich, Spurs, Burnley, and then Everton. United face Wolves, Brighton, Aston Villa, then Brentford. Great fixtures on paper there. Spurs, those Son and Kane assets, Watford, Leicester, Arsenal, Brighton. Those could also be quite profitable. But then we have some other cheaper teams here with the Watford facing Spurs, Burnley, Newcastle, Crystal Palace. Those fixtures are great on paper, even though Watford haven't been that great overall this Premier League season. So what this is kind of pointing out to me is that not only do we have these premium sides with great fixtures, but we also have some budget enablers here that will allow us to do a really nice bench boost. I think also potentially what you guys should be doing is pausing this and going look at your own FPL side and looking how many double Game Week 21 and 22 players you do have, because I think that's going to be integral to that planning for these upcoming game weeks. Now, there are some sides actually that only have a single Game Week 21 and then a double Game Week 22. However, some of those fixtures don't look that strong, except for maybe Crystal Palace, who face Brighton and Watford in that double Game Week 22 slot. Another team to kind of point out here is going to be Chelsea. They face Liverpool at home, then Man City and Arsenal. Not great fixtures on paper. And then I think in Game Week 24, Game Week 23, they also do blank. So this might be the time to get rid of those Chelsea assets as well. Arsenal, another team here with tough fixtures. It seems like all the top 6 sides are facing each other in Game Week 21 and Game Week 22, which might be a real kind of play if you guys want to go differential and not own these more highly owned assets. Go for more budget teams, and you might actually turn out a lot better in these 2 game weeks. But as I said, these are potential fixtures, no way is confirmed, so please don't take this as kind of gospel. I just wait for the confirmation in the upcoming game weeks. However, I do think that this is a possible scenario, as Ben Krellin has stated, and therefore you guys can sort of start planning ahead and looking at Game Week 21 and Game Week 22. I think the most important or the optimal strategy right now is to bank a transfer until we do get more news on the situation. As every game week that kind of goes ahead, I think more news will come out about potential fixtures, and therefore you might want those 2 free transfers to make more moves. Let me know in the comments down below which fixtures you guys think are the best on paper, and we can kind of have a little bit of a debate down below on which assets we should be bringing in, not only for Game Week 19, but for Game Week 21 and 22. And the final talking point to go over, I just wanted to quickly kind of briefly discuss the chip strategies. I think it's too soon to kind of analyze this. However, I do think some of these chips might require more planning than others, depending on which chip you guys want to use. And that's why I wanted to introduce you guys to the ideas of potentially using a chip in Game Week 22 and Game Week 21. So the first 2 I'm going to talk about are going to be the bench boost and the triple captain. I'm going to touch on the triple captain first because I think this is probably the easiest chip to use in Game Week 21 or Game Week 22. Simple, you guys know what it does. Triples your captaincy points. I don't think there's any planning that has to go ahead on that. You kind of bring the player you want to triple captain in prior to Game Week 21 or Game Week 22. You triple captain them in that respective game week, and then you go on your merry way. So definitely the easiest chip to go for. I do think another easy chip is going to be the Fiat. However, I do think the Fiat requires more of a kind of analysis of your team to decide if you actually want to free it or if you want to keep it for the future. I always say that I love to use the free hit on a blank game week, and I haven't really used it on a double game week, but that doesn't mean that it's not the best strategy to use. And if your team really doesn't have any double game week players in game week 21 or game week 22, I would definitely use it, but I think I might hold off on it just because if we do have a double game week in both, I think that the teams that double in game week 21 and game week 22 might be the best to bring in, even if it's going to be for a hit. Now let's go on to my favorite strategy, the wildcard plus the bench boost. If you guys have watched my channel over the past couple seasons, you'll know that I'm an absolute wildcard plus bench boost and kind of adjacent game week merchant. I love doing this strategy, and I do think there's a massive kind of pro to it. If you want to use the wildcard in game week 21 where you are allowed to, just remember that we do get a new wildcard in the new year, and that's exactly when game week 21 is going to happen. You guys will have a fresh wildcard to use heading into that upcoming game week. So then what that also allows you to do is kind of go up on these bench options, these cheap options for game week 22. Use the bench boost in game week 22 with a full stack starting 15 of bench boost players, and I think it's going to equal massive points and could give you that upper edge on your mini leagues. But the one thing that I want to stress here, and I also saw Ben Krellin state this as well, is that this might not be the biggest double game week in this Premier League season. We always were talking about the doubles and the blanks coming up later on in the season. That is still going to happen. So not only will we be having this massive double game week in 21-22, we pretty much going to have another double game week, I think around the game week 30 to 35 mark, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be quite hard to kind of decide between using the chips this double or in the double in the future. And with the whole pandemic situation, it might be better to hold off the chips till later on when we do get more clarity, or at least the outbreak isn't as strong. But I think the wildcard is going to be the number one chip that you might have to consider using if you guys don't have enough free transfers to prepare. But when you look at these fixtures, doubles in game week 21 and game week 22, I think with about 4 free transfers, we're going to have enough time to maybe settle on some moves, especially when a Mo Salah is going to be out for these 2 game weeks, and you can spread that money wherever you do please. Now you can always use the bench boost on its own. You can use your free transfers and then kind of prepare for the bench boost on itself. But I always do like using the wild card because I think you might be tempted to take too many hits leading up to these game weeks just to get a good bench on paper. But as with the previous talking point, let me know in the comments down below what you guys are thinking. Are you going to bench boost? Are you going to wild card, free it, or maybe even triple captain for these 2 game weeks? What's the plan? Comment it down below. I'll definitely be creating a more in-depth analysis into these chip strategies slightly closer to the time. I don't think it's worth it because the fixtures haven't been confirmed yet. I simply wanted to just plant the seed there. You guys can think about it and then come up with your own plan for your own FPL team. But I won't lie to you guys, the doubles, the blanks are my favorite time of FPL. This allows you to get that opportunity to really rise in rank. I will tell you guys in my previous seasons, the second half of my Premier League seasons have always been better than the first half. And I really do hope that we can have enough juice to get into that top 10k. And that's going to be quite a nice rank for the end of the season. Now I also want to stress, don't really worry too much about these doubles and these blanks, just kind of bank a transfer as far as I think. I don't think that strategy is the best for certain players. If you guys want to bring a Son, a Kane in, 100% would agree with that just because Spurs are guaranteed to pretty much have a few doubles coming up, at least in the short or medium term, and therefore those players right now might be good to bring in as long as their fixtures from game week 19 onwards look quite strong. But I know for my own personal team, don't really have a way to get a Son in, so I will be definitely banking a transfer because as the game weeks go, we'll get more news, and more news equals better FPL decisions. But let's basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the ultimate guide for game week 19 on its own, as well as the team selection for the upcoming game week, probably coming up about Thursday. As always, let me know in the comments down below any talking points, questions you want covered. I try to comment on every question as possible when I have time, and therefore you guys will always get my insight if you do ask the question. I'm going to be signing off though. This has been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.